מחר בבוקר. מחר בבוקר, תבוא מחר בבוקר. Okay, hello everyone. Rabbi Jacobson here, and we're going to be speaking about how to give and receive blessings. This is based on many questions that I've received over the years. Since you asked the question, I began this class in 1982, long before technology existed. And we just had face-to-face, heart-to-heart conversations, people from all walks of life. And over the years, thank God, it's grown. And with technology, we've been able to reach many more people, obviously. So people can be in the comfort of their own little environment and be part of this class. So based on many different questions that come in, either by email or in person. So one big question a lot of people talk about is blessings. And everybody wants to have a blessed life. And there's nobody that is going to shy away. If someone says, I'd like to offer you a blessing, most of us would say, yes, I'd love to have a blessing. And blessings are a part of living a balanced and healthy life, whether it's blessings for health, for long, healthy years, whether it's blessings in livelihood, blessings in having healthy families, and blessings in really being able to live up to the mission and calling for which we were sent to this world. These are all blessings, and there are many, many more. When you look in the Torah, Judaism, blessing is a major statement. You have right away the big statement that says that God says to Abraham, those that will bless you shall be blessed. I will bless those that bless you. Which is, of course, a beautiful statement that when you bless somebody, you also get blessed in return. You know, in this very selfish and often narcissistic world, where a dog eats dog, survival of the fittest, we all need blessings. We all need to be kind and compassionate to each other. But the word is used a lot, and many people ask, what exactly is a blessing? What does it mean? And is a blessing something just a matter of grace that comes from heaven, a gift? Or can we do things to initiate and actually actively draw blessings into our lives? And of course, God forbid the other side, can we do things that block blessings from entering our lives? So we really have to understand, what is this thing called a blessing? What is a blessing? In Hebrew, the word blessing is bracha. We'll be analyzing that in a few moments. So that's part of the questions, which of course also include issues like the gifts that some people are blessed with in this world sometimes seem random. Sometimes they say the wicked prosper, good people suffer. And of course it all touches upon that. So that's the theme of this discussion, and of course with the goal of us coming away with actual tools and skills to be able to bring more blessings into our lives. And as you'll see, when you really dissect the anatomy, called the secret anatomy of a blessing, it's quite surprising to understand what it really is, a blessing, and how we can actually use it as I said, a tool in our lives. So I mentioned the word blessing comes from the word bracha, in Hebrew bracha. The Hebrew language, as I've often discussed, is a language that is more of a metaphorical language as opposed to Latin language like English, which is a descriptive language. In Hebrew, every word has multiple meanings. And actually, when you know Hebrew, in Hebrew, one sentence sometimes needs a paragraph in English and 2 paragraphs in French, because its language is very concise and very metaphorical and very content-rich. Words mean things. So what does the word bracha, blessing, really mean? You know, when we say blessing, we mean someone blesses somebody, someone has blessings in their life. But actually the word blessing in Hebrew illuminates a very unique element to what the real blessing means. The word blessing comes from one of the expressions is in the Talmud. In the Gemara, in the Talmud, there's an expression, hamavrich es hagefen. The word mavrich in that context, from the word bracha, means to actually graft. Mavrich es hagefen refers to a vine, And sometimes if you're a gardener and you're dealing with, let's say, vines, what do they call them? Wineries and vines. So often to take care of the vines, you need to redirect a vine that may be growing in the wrong way. Sometimes you may need to graft something. Basically, it's redirecting, and channeling, and sometimes grafting that vine for it to grow properly, to be able to produce healthy and rich grapes. So in that context, what does that have to do with a blessing? So that tells us that a blessing is about redirecting. A blessing is about directing, about channeling. That may be the best word, channeling something. So we all know that, let's take an irrigation, for example. If water is running and you want to irrigate a field, you need to channel it to that field. You have to redirect it. We also know in our own lives, psychologically and emotionally, for example, a person has a stroke. Sometimes the body has its own capacity to heal, and it will create new pathways. And the same thing is within other parts of the body. It will rechannel or redirect. So in that context, blessing is about really a proper channeling of a particular flow of energy. That's how it's really understood in its deeper meaning. And of course, the mystics and the Kabbalists elaborate on this. And I'm going to explain it in this context. Let's go to some stories in the Bible. You find sometimes the expression of a blessing, and sometimes you have a prayer. What's the difference if someone prays for you or someone blesses you? And we have in Judaism, you have prayers, we say prayers, and we ask for things in our prayers. We ask for livelihood, we ask for health, we ask for peace, we ask for many different blessings. For many, we request that blessing. That's prayers. But then there's also the thing of blessing. We say, please bless us. Or someone blesses you, the blessing of the priests, the priestly blessing that we do on holidays in Israel, they do every day. Another thing, what's the difference between a blessing and a prayer? So there's an interesting episode in the book of Genesis that can illuminate this and will teach us what it means to channel. And here's the story. The story is that Jacob, at the end of the book of Genesis, Jacob, before he passes away, so he calls his son Joseph over and he says, bring your children. And actually Joseph initiates. Joseph says, I want to bring my 2 children and I'd like you to bless them before you pass on. And he brings the children. One was named Manasseh and one was named Ephraim. 2 sons. And Manasseh was the older one. So he put Manasseh to the right side of Jacob. The right side is always considered to be the priority and the number 1. And then he put Ephraim on the left side. So you have the 2 children standing before Jacob. Jacob, as he began to get ready to bless them, Jacob crossed his hands and put his right hand on the hand of Ephraim, the younger son, and his left hand on the hand of Manasseh. And Jacob and Joseph was obviously bothered by that, because the reason he put his firstborn there was because he wanted the right hand, and here Jacob was crossing it. And basically Jacob said, I will bless them accordingly. So the big question is, why couldn't he's going to bless them? Why couldn't he give the blessing to the firstborn, the one that the firstborn deserves? Why did he have to cross his hands? Why didn't he just give the blessing to the firstborn? So the answer is given is because a blessing does not have the power to accomplish something entirely new. The destiny of Manasseh, of the older one, was a certain destiny, and Ephraim is another one. A blessing is a channeler, it's not a creator. It channels energy, it does not create energy. That's what a prayer does. A prayer does, even if the destiny of somebody, let's say, God forbid, somebody's not well in hospital, and you say a prayer for them, the prayer is able to invoke a new destiny for them. It can change the course of their destiny. A blessing does not change the course. A blessing channels energy. So something that may be blocked, that is destined for you, a blessing will open up the channel, like I said. It'll open up the channel and direct it into your life. So a blessing is really the equivalent of someone, for example, let's say you have a musical talent, or your athletic talent, or whatever talent. What's a good educator do? They don't create your talent. They help you access it, and they help you actualize it in your life. That's what someone does. They don't create it. Creating something new has a certain virtue, but it does not really give you something that is the same thing. We all are born with much potential. We'll never even know how much potential a human being has. We have potential in so many different areas. Often it's by accident or by trial and error that we learn that we're really good at something. The question is, how much more potential do you have within you? That's what a blessing does. A blessing is, when someone says you have a blessing is to help you access something that's lying dormant within your spirit, within your psyche. Which of course in the healing process, and especially in psychological type of growth and work, often what you really want to do is not just help people and give them something new. You want them to be able to access deeper strengths so they can maintain and have sustainability in whatever it is that they're dealing with. If you think about it, remember I was once speaking to a doctor. So doctors, there are humble doctors, there are arrogant doctors. This doctor happened to be a very humble doctor. He was a great doctor, a very well-known doctor in the area of infertility. And he said to me something which struck me, and he's well-known and he's successful, and he has many successes under his belt, and he can be very proud of. And he said to me, you know something? We were talking about a certain situation that was very complicated, and I said, what do you think? Does this person have a chance of having a child? He says, I don't know. It's up to God. He wasn't even Jewish. And I said, it's up to God. So I said, and what's your role in the case? He says, my role, like all our roles, is to help facilitate the process that the natural healing and the natural fertility that a person has can be accessed. So he says, remember, we don't heal people. The human body heals itself. However, sometimes there are infections, impediments, deficiencies that need to be overcome to allow the healing to take hold. So if there's an infection that's too strong, you may need to have antibiotics or some other way to minimize the inflammation or other things that it's causing. But healing, he says, the body, a natural body heals. You get a scratch, it's going to heal. You don't need a doctor to make it heal. However, if it gets infected or anything else, you need to protect it, you need to facilitate it. And I thought about it because it's exactly what the mystics and the Torah explains about a blessing. I told this to him. I said, that's what a blessing is. When you go to someone for a blessing means they're not giving you anything new. They're helping facilitate to get rid of impediments or blocks that may not allow this blessing to manifest in your life. I deal with this all the time. People come for advice, let's say in areas of, most popular areas, relationships. Someone's dating and they just can't find the right person, can't make the commitment. So of course you go through all the usual suspects of like what the causes may be, fear of commitment, your own maybe traumas in your own childhood, maybe a bad marriage, your parents experiencing divorce. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people may have resistance to having long-term and sustainable, healthy relationships. But what you're really working to doing is not creating something new for this person. You want to help them access within them. The natural inclination is to find the right partner in your life, the right soulmate, and build a family with them. Everybody wants that. So why can't we just as easily achieve it? Because our skills or our tools may be flawed. Not because we're not capable, but like go ahead, someone has not learned how to swim, even though they're capable of swimming, they need to be trained. And many people are simply missing and people make a mistake. They think they're missing the fundamental piece. They're not missing the fundamental, they're missing the training. They don't know how to deal with it. I was just unfortunately, deal with this conflict management. Domestic conflict management, husband and wife are not getting along. And sometimes it gets to a point of so much acrimony and so much bad blood, it's very hard to reconcile. What you really want to do is I said to them, so let me ask you, did you ever love each other? Absolutely. Can you describe what it was like? And nothing of that is left? Maybe it's left, but I don't know how to access it. And I saw with my own eyes how both of them don't have the tool. They're fine when things are calm. They can handle things. As soon as there's a crisis, they don't know how to handle. Crisis, one person becomes very silent and withdrawn, retreats. The other one becomes very aggressive and very angry. And they just don't know how to deal with an emotion. So when you explore it, you start realizing, okay, their parents didn't know how to deal with a problem, so they don't either. So it's not that they don't have the capacity, they just never taught how. It's like someone trying to eat a piece of steak without a knife and a fork. You're not going to manage that easily. So we have much more potential and capacity than we think we have. So a blessing really, in that sense, is realigning yourself and finding the tools and skills to be able to access and channel those potentials in your actual life. That's what a blessing is, and that's what Jacob was doing. Jacob was not going to give Menashe anything new or Ephraim. He was helping them access and facilitate the process of what they really deserve in their lives. Now, a prayer is another story. A prayer is where you come and say, listen, I've done everything possible, and it may not be even in my reservoir, I don't even have that resource. So a prayer can actually give a person a new resource, a new tool. I shouldn't say tool because I have to confuse it with what I said. A new capacity to do something. That would be like you have stories, for example, someone who helped another person. They were given the ability to achieve something very new that they would never have been able to achieve on their own. This happens in life as well. But that's not a blessing. That's already a prayer. That's like literally like opening up something. A new door has opened. Whereas a blessing is the doors are there, the resources are there, and we're just channeling, which is really in essence what I said before about grafting or channeling or redirecting or realigning. Now, it's a tremendous point because when you think about it, in that sense, a blessing is really a skill that is able to help us access things that we ourselves may not be aware of. You know, it's one thing when a person says, listen, the situation is hopeless. I don't know if I have the ability to achieve something. But let's say you have confidence that you have the ability, but you just don't know how to do it yet. It's a very different type of attitude. You know, you see this all the time. You see people who have the confidence, even though they have not yet achieved success, but they have the confidence that they will achieve success. There was a custom in the olden days where people, where armies went to war, even before they went to battle, they would sing a song, a victory song. You see this all the time. You see when, let's say, teams go to play each other, whether it's a football team or a baseball team, they cheer each other on. Why? Because you need to have that energy, that infusion of confidence. You could be extremely skilled, but if you don't have the confidence, you see this all the time, very, very brilliant players or brilliant musicians or brilliant in any given area, and then they suddenly lose something. Now, they have not lost talent, they've lost belief in themselves. Exactly the same talent. Sometimes that psychological block is far, far harder to deal with than actual injury. That's why you'll find many people get injured. Once the injury is healed, they still have a certain tentativeness. They don't want to get hurt again, or they sometimes lose that total confidence. This is where blessings come in. A blessing is the ability, when we bless somebody, to help them get beyond those psychological blocks. And that's why, going back to the story with Abraham, when he said, I will bless those that bless you, you think about it, you know what that is? That's saying essentially that when we bless somebody, we open up the channels of blessing to ourselves. Use another expression from the Talmud, a very interesting expression, which is a tremendous tool as well in healing. It says someone who has a problem prays for someone else with that problem, you will get answered first. In other words, if you pray for somebody and say, listen, I know the word prayer there, but you could apply the same thing to a blessing. You bless somebody that needs a blessing, let's say, to find a good job, or a blessing to have healthy children. So the Talmud says that it reciprocates, a boomerang effect, that you get blessed with the thing that you pray and bless someone else. Why is that the case? So there's a thing called mirror neurons, which has become in the last while has been a real study. Mirror neuron. What are mirror neurons? That in some way we mirror reactions and feelings of another person. It relates to empathy. The classic example they give is that sometimes you see, let's say, somebody's about to close the door on their fingers, and they don't see it happening, and you stand there and you can literally cringe as if it's happening to you. Because in some way your mind is seeing it, and you are able to mirror the feeling. Real empathy is a form of a mirror neuron, that you can actually feel the pain of another. So in the Kabbalistic texts and literature, it talks about this in the context that we are all really part of one larger organism. Based on a Talmudic statement that, think of a body. Is it conceivable if the left hand of your body does something wrong, your right hand is going to hit it? Of course not, it won't strike it because it's part of one body. If all 7 billion people on this earth saw themselves as different components of limbs of one large organism, we would have complete peace and love for each other because we'd see we're all connected. So how can people behave cruelly and injustice from one person to another? Is because we don't feel it. Modern physics, there's a lot of talk about the integral unity of all of existence, of all cells, of all microscopic, subatomic particles. There's an integral unity to nature, to all of the world. The same is with humans, but we don't feel or sense that unity. When in fact, the fact is when one person hurts, everybody hurts. When one person celebrates, everybody celebrates. But because of, and I'll explain this in the Kabbalistic sense, because God concealed that unity from us, we live in a world where we can see ourselves as fragmented pieces, even though we're indeed actually parts of one big picture. I'll just give an illustration for this. Musical notes, musical notes. So a great composer composes a beautiful composition of music. It has hundreds and hundreds of notes. Someone who knows how to play the notes in the right order, the right tempo, and the right beat and everything. Beautiful music. Let's say for a moment, someone plays those notes in a very disjointed way, or basically misses a bunch of notes. What is it going to sound like? It's going to sound ridiculous. It's going to sound horrible. So all those musical notes are different pieces of one larger symphony. The same thing is with human beings. Each one of us has a unique role, a unique objective, a unique mission that's indispensable. Your musical note, nobody can play the music that you will play. This is like a fundamental principle in Jewish thought. It's really a universal statement. And it's really the essence of all psychological health. Because if you don't think you matter, if you think you're dispensable or negligible, then everything you do also becomes somewhat negligible. So here's the fundamental principle. You are a piece of the divine, created in the divine image, and you have music to play that you and only you can play that music. Oliver Wendell Holmes, in his classic poem called The Voiceless, makes this devastating line where he says, "Alas, to those who die with their song still inside them." We all have a song inside us, more than one song. And it's your song, nobody can sing your song, no one can play your music. At the same time, we're all musical notes in larger composition. So if we really had a sense of that, then we all see that we're both indispensable. You comes your role, you must play your role. At the same time, you need others and they need you. We're all intertwined in one interconnected universe. What happens if we don't realize that? That's what the Kabbalists call, or Isaac Luria calls, the doctrine of the Symptom, a concealment. Think of it like a darkness that descends, that doesn't allow you to see the integral connection between things. If you were to suddenly shut the lights in this room right now, it was pitch dark, pitch black, what would happen? Nothing changed in the room. The chairs are still here, the tables are here, the people are here. Everything else is here. The only difference is you can't see it. So you can bump into a chair, God forbid. You can hurt yourself. You can use objects not for their purpose because you're in dark. So what does light really do? Light does not change any object. Light simply illuminates and lets you see clearly what's what. This is how the mystics explain existence. Our existence is a dark state. As the Bible says right in the beginning, darkness, darkness enveloped in all of existence. What does darkness mean? It doesn't mean necessarily physical darkness. It means a spiritual darkness, that we don't see clearly what's good for us, what's not good for us. You walk down a path. Should I go right? Should I go left? Someone offers you something. Is this healthy for me or is it not? Relationships, am I doing it the right way? It's all an uphill battle because we're trying to find clarity and illumination in a dark world. And that first darkness does not allow us to see the integral connection between each other. And that's where all impediments begin. That's on a macrocosmic level. Let's go on a microcosm in yourself. As I said before, we have within us, we have a psyche, we have a soul, a spirit, that has tremendous amount of potential. A child appears in this world, a new child, a newborn child. What is this child capable of? We have no clue. The child has a mind, has a heart, has faculties. Now the child begins to grow. Hopefully the child gets a good education, a good upbringing. Their skills are cultivated, nurtured, like a garden. The flowers begin to grow, and hopefully, if it's gardened properly by the right gardeners, by the parents and educators, flowers will grow, weeds will be uprooted, and you'll have a beautiful garden. But we all know it's not that simple. Life is a hostile world. People get hurt. Innocent people get hurt. Children get hurt. They get disappointed. They experience duplicity. There are people who take advantage, abuse, trauma, all kinds of things. What's actually happening when those forces come into play? They are bringing down a cloud of darkness on a person's psyche to the point that you become unclear to what you're really capable of. And it like remains undercover. So here you are living your life on a survival level, on the outside, on an external level, with very little knowledge of what you're really capable of. And very many people, especially if they grow up in an environment and a home that's invalidating and even more so abusive, what does that do? It creates that the child loses confidence, constantly second guesses himself or herself, and does not believe in themselves. That doesn't mean they're not capable. That would mean basically, essentially, they're losing a psychological war, which is they don't believe in themselves. So essentially, this darkness is what creates all human misery. The misery of not knowing who you are, the misery of not knowing that you're capable of dealing with challenges that you may think you're not capable of dealing, and the misery of not being able to access your real strengths. And you can go on with your life and the song will never be sung. And here come the concept of a blessing. When we bless each other, when I come and bless you and you bless me, what we're saying is, I believe in you. I believe in your capacity. And the blessing I give you is that to reveal the hidden, to shine a light and channel your resources in ways that you can actualize, not just in a state of potential. That's what a good friend does. That's what a good mentor does. That's what a good coach does. They help you build the confidence and they help you see clearly the strengths you truly have. I mean, is there a greater gift than that? So it's clear as clear as day, and everybody can realize you have much more strengths than you know you have. But two things are possible. Either you don't know you have them, or you're not confident in yourself, that you can do anything with them. And that's often due to the environment around us that invalidates, that challenges, that's skeptical, that puts you down. You get beat up enough times, at some point it affects you. You know, a boxer in the ring, knocked down enough times, you know, you start losing your willpower and you start feeling weaker. But a friend blesses you and says, here's a blessing. My blessing to you is, in general sense, a blessing opens up these channels and builds the confidence that you can access it. You're really capable of something here. And that's why when we bless somebody, like in the case where what God says to Abraham, I bless those that will bless you, because if they open up your channels, I will open up their channels. Because that's how it works. When you're kind to somebody, you become a kinder person. You're not just helping them, you're helping yourself. You're exercising the muscle called kindness. Obviously, kindness has an element to it. I have compassion, someone is needy, I'm there for them. That's one half of the story. The bigger part of the story is that your kindness is you are helping yourself because you're exercising, you're actualizing your capacity to love. Ask anyone that truly loves in a healthy way, they will always say, my love that I give gives me more than what I give to others. What I receive is far greater than what I give. Now, of course, selfish love and unhealthy love has other manifestations. That's what it comes down to. There's an expression in the Medrash. It says that when someone gives a poor person charity, it says, Yeser, more than what the owner gives the pauper gives the owner. And another expression would be like the teacher that said, where did you learn so much? He says, I learned much from my teachers. I learned even more from my colleagues. Chaverim. But I learned most, mitamidei, from my students. Yeser mekulam. I learned more than all. You can ask yourself a question. One second. My teachers are smarter than I am. So of course I learn from them. My colleagues are not as smart as my teachers. They're more peers. But my students, they know less than me. How could they teach me? But ask any teacher, ask any writer, ask any communicator. That when you have to teach, you have to force yourself to dig deeper. So when you're blessing another person with teaching, it's blessing you in return because it's causing you to open up channels you never would have opened. So blessings are essentially a circular flow that create channels, that open channels for everybody. That's really what it comes down to. And that's why the idea, lately you read a lot about gratitude, how gratitude is such a good tool in psychological welfare, a person's healthy psychological welfare, gratitude. Because when you thank people, it just brings out something in you that makes you a healthier person. And you think, why? Why would gratitude do that? Because gratitude is the same like with a blessing. You are opening up, it's like a breathing circle. When we are selfish people, when we allow ourselves to succumb to the darkness that separates us, instead of the blessing that unites us, you know what happens? It's exactly what happens when an infection begins to fester inside your body, God forbid. Where do infections thrive? In closed spaces, when they can't breathe, when there's no fresh air. So then in this dark place, look at maggots, look at disease. Where does it thrive? It thrives when there's nothing fresh. Decaying bodies, water that is toxic, anything that just sits there and doesn't have any fresh water running in or fresh air is prone to toxins. So the whole idea of health is really opening up the door, opening up a window, opening up fresh air, creating something new. Look at human beings. If you continue doing your patterns day by day, every day, meet the same people, listen to the same bad news, and never ever change your routines, what do you think happens? It becomes a rut. And that rut becomes like a broken record. It continues to go again and again. It creates a monotony. And you dig deeper and deeper until the point it's very hard to break out of. One of the best solutions is bring fresh air in. Meet a new friend, start a new class, read a new book, travel somewhere, shift things, shake things up. So that's exactly the same idea. The world can become extremely narcissistic and selfish, and then what happens is all problems begin when you are a loner and don't have any interconnections. There's nothing in nature and nothing in the human body that's not networked. Every part of nature is networked with other parts of nature. There's nothing that's a self-contained entity on this earth. And nothing can survive being a self-contained entity. You cut something off from other things, every predator has its prey. Every prey is a predator of others. There's a certain cycle that's continuously needed, whether it's the mineral world or the vegetable world or the animal world, an ecosystem. And in our body, the same is true. If one part of the body decides to break away and say, I'm becoming independent, not only the rest of the body will compromise, it will be compromised. There's something about a united flow, what I said before, a channeling flow that allows things to breathe, allow things to interact with each other. So this is true across the board. And a blessing captures that idea, the idea of I'm blessing another person. We have the concept of blessing children, for example. Some do it Friday night, some do it before Yom Kippur, some do it every day. But we could always, blessings are always a great thing to do. It's essentially going out of your own self to be there for another, to extend something, to bless them, to open up a channel in them. And as I said, that Mer Enesh Neim Havaya, it says, when you illuminate someone else's life, the illumination comes back to you. So in that sense, blessing is a gift. It's really a gift. It's something that is underappreciated and underestimated its power. It simply means that any given day, today, tonight, tomorrow, go over to somebody that you may have a coworker, a friend, a family member, someone you may have not spoken to in a while, and say, I want to extend to you a blessing that your life should go better. You have any aggravation, to get over it. You need more income, a little more health. There's something powerful when you do that. You open up a door, the true door that connects us all. That's what blessings are about. They're channel openers. That's what they are. And who doesn't need an opening? We all want openings. We all want openings. Asher b'shvil teshet tisasher, the Medrash says, which means when you give somebody, you tithe, and you give them charity, you become a wealthier person, physically and also spiritually and also emotionally. If you think about emotions, you see this very clearly. Emotions can't function in a vacuum. Love is with another person. Love, compassion, empathy. Any type of emotional experience is going to be with another person. So it's like a dance. And what it's doing is it's counteracting the forces that I mentioned before, the dark forces that separate us. The forces that do not allow us to see these channels. There's no greater gift that you can tell somebody is to be able to say, I can access the strengths that I have internally. Because then you can overcome any challenge. Now, God knows we all have our challenges in life. But the difference between one person and another is not the challenges, is whether you are able to access and feel confident that you can access tools to navigate. That's the biggest gift, is to know how to navigate. To know how to navigate. Good swimmers don't just swim all the time. Good swimmers know when to swim, when to stop. When there's a great storm or there's a tide going against them, they don't fight it. They let themselves float with it. They let the energy carry them. That's what a good swimmer is, a navigator, knowing how to navigate the vicissitudes of life. And of course, because we are subjective people, and we can't always see clearly, that's why it makes it so difficult for us to really be able to do this. That's why we need someone else to bless us. We need someone else to advise, to guide, and to help us along the way. Now I want to add another component to this whole thing, which is connected to this week's Torah portion, which actually talks about blessings. But they're not regular blessings. This chapter in the book of Numbers, 7th chapter in the book of Numbers, called Balak. So Balak was a king of Moab, which was a country that bordered on Israel. And the Israelis, the Jews, were coming back after their long exile in Egypt. They were marching back 40 years to the Promised Land. Balak saw them marching and he became frightened of them because he knew, he had heard what had happened, and he was afraid they would overrun his country and basically take power, take away his power. So he commissioned a prophet by the name of Balaam, a true prophet, a divine prophet, however, a prophet of the other side, a prophet of darkness. And this prophet, he asked him, he said, I want you to curse these Jewish people. So Balaam sets out, long story short, I'm not going to tell all the details, I've discussed this in previous years. He sets out on his way, and the story is told how an angel of God comes and does not let him go, travel. Basically, you're a prophet of God. How could you curse a people that God does not want to curse? And that's what Balaam tells Balak. As much as I'd love to curse them, and as much as I'd love to take your money and your commission of doing this, but I cannot say something that is not going to be put into that's not in the mouth of, that God does not put into my mouth. Because that's what my power is. You're asking me a curse, not just a curse of human, you want me to invoke my powers. I cannot say something that God does not allow me to say. So Balak agrees, he tells him to bring offerings, and Balaam opens his mouth, and to his chagrin, Balak's, and even to Balaam's chagrin, instead of curses, come out blessings. Some of the most beautiful blessings ever stated in history. And some of them actually we say every day in the prayers. Matovu Elacha Yaakov. Look how good and beautiful are the tents of Jacob. Mishkanesechi Yisrael. And the dwellings of Israel. And he goes on, and so Balak says to him, what are you doing? I asked you to curse them, you're blessing them. He says, I told you I cannot utter a word that God doesn't put in my mouth. That's the words God put into my mouth. So let's try a second time. And Balak again brings different offerings, and Balaam opens his mouth. And this time, not only blessings, even better blessings, even greater blessings. And they try a third time. And even greater blessings, to the point, blessings that talk about the Messianic age, the future of the universe. Most beautiful, as I said, eloquent blessings. At this point, of course, Balak is enraged. Even Balaam is not happy. But what could he do? That's what God wants him to say. But the interesting thing is, at the end of the story, it's not a happy ending. Bilam says to Balak, look, I'm paraphrasing. I can't curse these people if God doesn't want to curse them. They're being protected by God, and since God wants to bless them, I had to bless them. If you want to destroy them, we can't do it. We have to get them to destroy themselves. He says, send the beautiful Midianite women to seduce them, and once they transgress and show how they defy God, they will hurt and destroy themselves. That's Bilam's brilliant advice. So it wasn't a prophecy. But prophecy, forget about it. They were protected. God was not going to let him curse. He was going to only let him bless them. But everyone has free will, and what Balaam gave advice was get them to hurt themselves. We cannot hurt them. And that's what happens. Now, how does this play into our lives? And the lesson, as I always discuss, what difference does this make to us? This happened thousands of years ago in this type of miraculous event about Balaam and Balak, but it has tremendous lessons, and continuing where I left off with blessings. But first, one big question here. Besides, what's the meaning of the story? What's going on? If God wants to bless the Jewish people, just bless them. Why does it have to come in this like weird, strange way that first Balaam wants to curse them? Instead of curses coming out of his mouth, blessings come out of his mouth. What is this? And why didn't Balaam give that advice in the beginning? Why did he wait after 3 sets of blessings, great blessings, which remain with us forever? So this gets into a deeper discussion of what I said earlier. Remember, there's 2 states of consciousness. One is when we are blind and in the dark. That would be a person who does not know what to do with their lives. Person, they say, I'm in the dark. I have no direction. I have no clue what I should be doing. I don't know where I should be passionate about. And in the psychological level, a person who's lost. They're lost. They don't feel the ability to really forge ahead and set their mind to something and grow. That's a state, I'll call that shrouded consciousness. That's like the state of darkness that I mentioned before. And in that type of situation, we are all of them fragmented, different pieces. You live from moment to moment. You don't have a cohesive plan. You don't have a focus. That leads to all of other problems and maladies that we know that they lead to. There's a second state, we'll call it illuminated consciousness, where you are in a state of awareness. You are aware of your situation. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but you have clarity. And even when there's a problem, you realize this is a problem I need to overcome. And you have direction. You know where you're going. It's like the difference between someone traveling and they're lost in the woods and someone's in the woods, but they know where they're going. They have someone traveling in the dark, another traveling with a flashlight. Someone with a GPS and someone without a GPS. So when we talk about life, obviously, when we come into this world, a child emerges from its mother's womb. It's in a dark world. It's the parents of the child, and then the educators, and the peers, and the friends that will help train and educate the child to go from a darkened state, so the child should have the, as I said, the skills and the resources to be able to really function as a productive adult. If the child does not have those tools, or those tools are somewhat compromised, you're going to have a child growing into an adult that is pretty much lost. This doesn't mean they can't be successful at work. It doesn't mean they can't make money. It doesn't mean they can't have pleasure. But from a point of view of direction and saying, I know the purpose of my life, I have that focus, I'm reaching a transcendental state, no. So there's 2 different situations, 2 different states. One is called the state of a blessed state, and one is called a cursed state. Not cursed as in some type of curse from above. Cursed state means it's in a darkened state. What this chapter comes to teach us is not that we avoid darkness and that we ignore it. That even the darkness which Balaam represented and Balak, who wanted the people to be cursed, even that turns into a blessing. That's what it teaches us. That we can go into this dark world and yes, counteract the divisiveness, the fragmentation, the compartmentalization that so often plagues us, internally and collectively. To counter that, that's why the story has to go through a dark state, because the point is that blessings come from the darkest place as well. Because when you come from the dark and you come to realize the blessing can be even greater. Like the expression goes, that you really produce good olive oil when you press the olive. Pressure creates greatness. So in a strange way, this dark world, where we sometimes feel listless, aimless, directionless, if you really turn it around, it can turn into a tremendous catalyst that can be a catapult us to tremendous growth. And that's the story. That's why it happens this way. Balaam is commissioned to curse because we deal with adversarial situations, we deal with all kinds of forms of darkness, but it turns into great blessings. But then comes the great warning. Remember, don't become arrogant in your blessings. Don't become arrogant, because at the end of the day, we're all vulnerable. So it's true. Balaam could not curse them, but he gave advice when we start getting seduced by our own temptations, when we get distracted and succumb to our own gratification, and we lose sight of the picture, that's when the trouble comes in. So to have that type of focused and called illuminated conscious living, called what today they call mindfulness. What's mindfulness? The different meanings and different ways it's applied. But the basic way, mindfulness means your mind is on it. You're aware. How many things do we do because we're so we're not even aware? There are people today completely unaware how rude, how arrogant, how hurtful they can be to others. It's much worse when they're completely oblivious. It bothers me to no end when people sit at a meeting and everyone's texting. Now you say, if everyone's doing it, it's not rude. Since when is collective rudeness not rude? You're sitting with someone. I mean, I can't say I've not been guilty, but I really work very hard not to, because we're so addicted to it. You're sitting with someone. Eye-to-eye contact. You're having a conversation. And you got to check your text, your email. Phone rings. Now let's say both of them are doing it. That doesn't make it better. There's a respect and dignity, human beings. You look at me. Listen to me. You don't want to have time for me? Let's make another time. But when you give me your time, give it to me entirely. This is called a blessed attitude. However, we can be rude today. People have thousands of friends on Facebook, but they're not friendly people. You can sit in a stadium with 60,000 other baseball fans, and everyone's cheering, and it seems like you're all camaraderie. Then people go each their own way and don't even look at the other person. The sensitivity that's necessary for humans to thrive is often very lacking in our callous universe. And that's like you're even oblivious. We don't even know. We don't even know. That's real darkness. You don't even know there's a problem. And that's what Balaam realized. The best way to get to them is let them bring their own problems upon themselves. We don't have to bring it upon them. So you have the whole story of blessings, the opposite of blessings. As I said, bracha, from the word to bless, to bracha, to baruch atah. Blessed. A blessing is drawing forth energy. There's in the Zohar, there's a very interesting, actually odd episode, narrative. What does it say? It says that Rab Shimon Bar Yochai was a great mystic, was the greatest mystic of them all, the author of the Zohar. One episode goes like this. Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, the students wanted him to teach, but he wasn't motivated for whatever reason. He wasn't doing so. So the suggestion was they should praise him, give him compliments. Rashbi, you're brilliant. Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, you're compassionate. You are loved. All the bunch of compliments. Flatter him. And when you do that, he'll start teaching. So of course the obvious question is, what is that? What is this? First of all, what kind of behavior is that? Flattery. We would say flattery won't get you anywhere. But we're talking here one of the greatest sages. Flattery is what made him start teaching. And teaching is an obligation. You have to hear that you're a great guy before you start teaching. And the commentaries, and when you read the Zohar properly, it's very obvious the reason. The compliments were not to flatter him. The compliments not to make him feel good. The compliments were to elicit those strengths that those compliments offer from him. So sometimes a person may not even always be aware, or sometimes is distracted or busy with something else. And you say to him a compliment. It's not to compliment to make him feel good. It's to draw out the wisdom, the compassion, and so on. So if you think about it, it's really a tremendous tool. In marriage, this is like one of the most underrated and underused tools. Giving a compliment. Yes, people do that in the first few months of their marriage, when the honeymoon is still going on. But then you start taking people for granted. When's the last time, ask yourself, someone who's married for 30 years or 20 years, that you just, not for any particular reason, just said, I really appreciate you. You're just a person that has these and these qualities. I really appreciate it. I think it's great. And not because they did something for you. They gave you dinner, you said thank you. Or you want something from them, so you know what, you warm them up, you're going to butter them up with a few compliments. Who was it that told me this story? It was very interesting. There was a couple where different issues they had, and one of the things she really disliked doing was washing dishes, and especially, even though they had a dishwasher, taking the dishes out of the dishwasher. She once commented on that. And they would have also romantic issues, intimacy issues. The husband came home one day, he looked at the dishwasher, he saw that it was full, so he emptied the dishwasher, even though it was not what he usually liked to do either, but he did it. His wife comes home, she sees that the dishwasher is empty. And it was like it aroused in her a very romantic reaction, a real appreciation, because he did like a nice gesture. And it like really created a connection and a bond, at least for a while. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was something, because she didn't ask for it, he just did it. Anyway, this was shared in a workshop maybe of helping couples, and the story was told. The next thing we know, the women are saying, something, my husband's heard this workshop online or maybe YouTube, wherever, and they're coming and telling me, go check the dishwasher. They thought by telling their wives that they did clean the dishwasher, their wives will be very romantic with them. You understand, obviously that's not going to work if you tell them, go check the dishwasher. It has to come natural. So the point is, there's a certain element of reaching out when you take an initiative, and not for any particular reason, whether it's a compliment, whether it's praise, or whether it's a blessing. Goes a tremendous way, not just because it touches another person's heart, because you're opening up channels. That's what it comes down to. You're opening up channels. That's what a blessing is about. Channels to others and channels to yourself. And allowing the ecosystem, allowing your psyche, your soul, and the soul of those that you love to breathe. And when it breathes, there's a certain give and take. There's a symbiosis and like a circulating flow of interconnectivity that makes things healthier. And the same is true not just with spouses, the same is true with children, the same is true with coworkers, the same is true even with strangers. Smile to somebody on a subway, share a good word. These things go a long ways. You never know what can happen. You never know what a person is going through. You open up a door. It's so easy in this, as I said, survival of the fittest world, where people just take care of themselves. Unless I get something, then I'll give you something. But that ability to just give without particularly necessarily getting something in return has tremendous, tremendous implications. It sounds simple, but many of us need to train ourselves to be that way, to come natural, and to make that particular effort. So that's the story, my friends, of blessings. And blessings that even come from negative experiences. That negative experience can also bring tremendous blessings. Vayafach is the expression. Klol lebracha. It says transform a curse into a blessing. I once discussed this at length. I believe I also wrote a long article about it. Another story in the Talmud of the same Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. He sent his son Rabbi Elazar to go get blessed from the sages, the great sages of the time. His son goes off, and is shocked by the fact that the sages, instead of blessing him, they cursed him. Comes back to his father, he's all traumatized. His father says, so what were the blessings they gave you? He said, they didn't bless me, they cursed me. So his father said, tell me what they told you. And he began to repeat things that sound like a curse. That's about, and I don't even want to repeat it. If you read this article on meaningfullife.com, check out. It's a very interesting story. His father listens to him and says, that's not curses, they really blessed you. They're all blessings, you just didn't know how to read it or to hear it. They're cryptic. And he went on to interpret how all those lines that they told are really blessings. So all the commentaries jump on this Talmud and say, what is going on here? Why don't they just bless him in a way that he could understand it? Why does it have to be cryptic? And why does his father have to interpret it? So the different answers given. One of them, I'll share two. One of them is because they saw in the destiny of this person, of Rabbi Lazar, they saw that these curses would befall him. So they wanted to transform it. So they used language that sounded like a curse, but really they intended a blessing. So they took his destiny, but they turned it around by using those same words that sound negative with the positive intentions. That was one answer given. And another answer given by the Baal HaTanya, Shneur Zalman of Liadi, he says, because there are two types of blessings. Some blessings that come flowing to you in a direct way, very obvious blessings. But there's some blessings that are so powerful, they cannot come in a direct way. They have to come concealed. And that reveals, and they can contain even more intensity. You see this in life. Sometimes the things we express are never as intimate or intense as things that we can't express. So that's why it sometimes comes in a garment or in a container that looks negative, but in truth it has even more power. What he calls this hidden love, the concealed love that can only be captured in a concealed way, but it has even deeper love. But however you explain it, what you see here is the same thing. You know, when a student comes to a teacher or a child to a parent, or we come to our friends and say, bless me. Sometimes if they're wise, they'll say, make a statement that to you may not sound like a blessing today, but in 5 years from now, you realize it was an unbelievable blessing. Because that's what a true teacher is. A visionary can see sometimes things we don't see right now. So you right now may say, you know what, why don't you give me a blessing, and then find out later what they actually said was a blessing, except you didn't realize it at the time. There's a story in the Talmud as well, where one blessing was given that the wall in your house should fall down. What kind of blessing is that? The hole in your wall, yeah. They were destitute, and when the wall fell down, they discovered a treasure that was buried in the wall that would never have been known. So that's just a small example. There's times that we don't always see the blessing until later. So I want to conclude by saying this. We should all be blessed, everyone here, everyone listening. I give you my humble blessing, but most importantly, more than blessing, the blessing that opens up channels. You have within you tremendous, awesome power that is bottled up and locked up, and often we're not even aware of. A blessing opens that door, opens a channel to that energy. So find people that bring blessing to your life, and you bless other people, and that will also bring blessing. That's what blessings are about. We need a lot more blessings than we have. We need blessings all the time because we have so many challenges in this world. Above all, we're so comfortable in a way. So we feel blessed. No, we don't have a war to fight. We can live peacefully. Nobody's coming knocking on our doors to arrest us, to kill us. I'm not saying life doesn't have its challenges, but we live in very blessed times in many ways. Comfort, prosperity. Compared to our great-grandparents, our grandparents, 70 years ago, what was going on in Europe? So we are blessed. Sometimes we take for granted these blessings. So we need another blessing, is to appreciate the blessings we have and appreciate them in a real way, not to just think a sense of entitlement that I deserve it. It's recognizing it's a gift, and how are you using it to the fullest? How are you using the gifts you were given to help this world become a better place? The gifts you're given to actualize your skills, to help actualize others. There's so much investment in fighting demons. You know, I always think about it, I always ask psychologists, how much, what would you estimate people invest more time in fighting darkness or in bringing light? Unfortunately, most people are fighting more time invested in fighting their demons. I'm not judging them, I'm not criticizing. However, it's sad, because you could take all that energy, if you could really take that energy and focus on building, on bringing light, bringing blessing instead of fighting curses, how much healthier would we be? So we live in this world where we have these challenges, but the good news is that beneath the surface lie these assets and these resources, and we need to build these channels. So as I said, everyone should be blessed. I hope I can say that many of you brought blessing, or all of you have brought blessing to my life. I hope I bring blessing to yours. And please be in touch. Meaningful Life Center, myself, we're here as a resource, as an asset, as a friend, in any possible way. And may we always bless each other. Everyone have a blessed week. We continue on this journey every Wednesday. As I always say, the most dignified thing to be involved in is in the intersecting, in the majestic and dignified soul, journey of another person's soul. I feel honored that I have been part of so many people's souls' journeys, and that you've been part of mine. And I think that's an unbelievable way to celebrate, and that maybe is the greatest blessing of all, that ability to create that synergy, the synergy that comes from that type of interconnection. So again, everyone have a blessed week. Simon Jacobson here, both YouTube and Facebook, or that's YouTube and that's Facebook. Please share your thoughts, your comments, like it, post it, get the word out there, and hopefully we can create a ripple effect, a butterfly effect that impacts and creates a perpetual blessing that feeds the next blessing in a, as I said, perpetual domino effect. Everyone be well and be blessed. Thank you. Good. Huh?
You started much earlier today than last week.
Really? Why? It's not. I thought it started later, actually. No. Now it's what time is it?
Well, now it's about 9:45.
Pretty soon. Yeah. It was nice meeting you.